Hello, everybody. It's Aaron Christensen with Horror 101 with Dr. AC, and welcome back to Scare-a-Thon 2025, benefiting the International Rescue Committee. And we have a special treat, a personal treat to me. I hope you enjoy it as well. We're going to be talking with IAN Simmons of Kicking the Seat. Let's go ahead and bring IAN in right now. Hello, IAN.
Hey, I'm glad you let me in.
I feel like we do this like every other week, because you're either on my show or I'm on your show. You were recently on our Black Sunday panel, which aired early October, and I'm just really excited to have you in the mix because you've been so supportive of Scare-a-Thon over the years, and it's just a thrill to kind of throw a little spotlight on you and find out a little bit more about IAN Simmons, the man behind the banner.
Well, thank you for having me on. And, all credit for my involvement with Scare-a-Thon goes back to you because you're the first person I saw who was doing this. And, I saw it as a great opportunity to not only continue my horror education under your willing and very patient tutelage, but also to support some great causes over the years. So thank you. I congratulate you on using what little bits of free time you have to be philanthropic.
You do, but you have made room for it. I guess that's also a thing, is that you have a busy enough schedule, both from a recording standpoint and just a life standpoint.
Yeah.
And the fact that for several years, like we blocked out Fridays, you would have me on back when it was just a podcast before it was a YouTube channel. I would not have this YouTube channel right now if it were not for you having me on your show and you being very patient with me and answering questions, things like that. So I'm thrilled. I hope this doesn't just turn into a big, back slapping party, but I'm okay with that too.
Hey, me too. I don't have anything negative to say about you or anything that you've built. So this is a great place to start. One of the things I love about the whole YouTube, content creator thing is it is kind of contagious because I've got a lot of friends who have started their own, channels or podcasts, or at least been, crossover panelists on other people's shows. So many friendships, I think, have been birthed by bringing people together just to, BS and talk about movies. It's an incredible thing.
Let's go ahead and kind of go back to the beginning. I mean, you're a member of the Chicago Film Critics Association. How did you start being a critic, and then how did you get noticed by the Chicago Film Critics Association such that you could get brought into it?
I'll give you the short version of it because I could ramble about this for hours. But no, essentially, it was back in 2009, I believe, is 2009 or 10. The older I get, the fuzzier the details get, as I'm sure you can attest. But my wife and I were driving back from a screening of the film Julie and Julia, the sort of the rom-com with Amy Adams and Meryl Streep playing Julia Child, and I hated that movie. I haven't been back to revisit it since, but I was just ranting and raving in the car about how much I despised everything about the film. And at one point she turned to me and said, "You need to do something with this because my goodness." And so I kind of knocked it around in my brain for a bit. I'm like, I could do this as a podcast, I guess. I'd done some written reviews on an art website that I had because I'm a trained illustrator by calling. But I wanted to kick it up a notch, as it were. So I started a blog. It was Kicking the Seat. I did written reviews to begin with, and then a few years later, I started podcasting. And then a few years after that, I got into YouTube. Now, the CFCA thing, once you become a film critic, you want to try and get into some organizations because you hear all the great stories about, like, oh, film critics, and you get to go all the press screenings, you get all this free stuff and get to meet people. That is true. But getting into one of those organizations is more than just like, hey, I'm a film critic now. And you have to kind of have a body of work and a work ethic. And at that point, I didn't really have, I had the work ethic part, but still kind of building up a body of work. Plus, I was, strictly online. I wasn't in newspapers or magazines or anything. I was just doing it for the fun of it on my own blog about the same time everybody else was doing a blog and a film criticism thing. So I went to a screening at the Lake Street screening room downtown Chicago. which is a famous institution. It's a small screening room where Siskel and Ebert used to do a lot of their preview screenings, and a lot of the Chicago press would go. I had a relationship at the Music Box Theater, another Chicago institution, and I was able to get on their press list. And one of the first screenings was at the Lake Street. And I go there. I got there super early because I wanted to make sure I got there on time and I wasn't a nuisance. And I ended up sitting down by myself. Didn't know a lot of other folks in the room, and no one in the room knew me, as you would expect.
Right.
And this guy came in and sat down right next to me and struck up a conversation. And his name was Dan Geyer. He was the president of the time of the Chicago Film Critics Association. I think he sat down because he didn't know who I was. He knows everybody. He's like, who's this kid? We had a really good conversation. We had about 20 minutes to jawbone before the screening started. And it was a screening for a documentary about the making of The Shining. Well, conspiracy theories regarding the making of The Shining called Room 237.
Yep.
So it ties back into horror. And at the end of it, he said, you should apply for the CFCA. And I thought, yeah, okay. All right. I've been turned down by the Online Film Critics Association 3 times. I think I'd gotten my 3rd rejection notice like 2 weeks before this conversation. And I said, I'm just a blogger, man. He's like, well, we are trying to open up and expand our horizons to recognize that it's not all magazines and newspapers anymore. So give it a shot. And a couple months later, I applied. And shortly after that, I got my invitation, and it's been that way since 2013. About 5 years after that, I branched out from the world of audio podcasting and written reviews to YouTube, simply because I had an interview with Adam Green and Joe Lynch for their FearNet TV horror sitcom Hollister.
Right.
Holliston. Hollister is the clothing brand. Had a sit-down interview with them and one other journalist. Only 2 press people showed up for that screening. The downside is that's really kind of weird. The plus side is we got a lot of time with them. Had this hour-long interview, and I was like, okay, now what do I do with this? I want to transcribe it because I'm very slow. So I did a little bit of digging, and I found, hey, I can do audio for this, turn it into an audio podcast. Did that for a while, and then this video YouTube thing, started doing video versions of things, all out of laziness because I don't like transcribing or typing. I don't type a lot of written reviews anymore, mostly just podcasts and live streams and stuff. I'm probably getting the chronology all screwy because in order to do this lifestyle, because I've got like a wife and kids and all sorts of other things, I notoriously wake up between 3:30 and 4 in the morning to start my day. So it's like 3 a.m. somewhere in like regular person time for me right now. So I apologize if I'm rambling. It was real rough going. I didn't even think I had a webcam at that. I was just using the thing on my laptop. And if you go back and look at those early videos, it's really rough. And I thought, I'm not just going to be one of those people who sits and talks about movies for an hour. I'm going to do stuff that like matters and be different. And I ended up quickly finding out that I just want to sit and talk about movies for an hour. And so that led to, I think at the height of it, I was doing like 4 shows a week.
You and I have talked about horror movies exclusively almost on your show, but you cover a wide breadth of films, new releases, you do retrospectives, things like that. It's kind of like you get to be your own film programmer.
It is. And that's also sort of a problem from what I understand, because they say if you're going to do YouTube, find your niche and carve it out. My niche is movies, but there's like 5,000 sub niches and genres within movies. So I'll talk about everything from rom-coms to horror movies to, Indian film, which I fell in love with a few years ago with the movie RRR, even subgenres of subgenres like, gialli and Hammer films. So yeah, there's nothing I won't talk about or watch. I just recorded, I think, my 3rd straight documentary podcast with my critic and friend, Dave Fowley. I love it all.
Well, and I think that's what I like about your channel is that it is kind of like getting to know this person. And these are the things that they're interested. These are the tangents that they're going off on. You go, hey, you know what? I'm interested in this, and I'm going to go down that rabbit hole, and you can come along with me should you so choose.
I appear on other people's shows, and in addition to yours. At the dawn of the pandemic, our mutual friend and acquaintance, Mark Krawcheck, he has a show called the Spoiler Room Podcast, which he does every Sunday night live. Used to be Mondays, now it's on Sundays. I've been his co-host for 5 years. It's crazy because I think, oh, it's been doing it for a little while. It's like half a decade already. He plans out his calendar, a year like right before the new year begins with a theme. And
Mm.
each month is a spotlight movie. And then there's like 3 to 4, depending on the number of weeks in the month, kind of supporting that theme films built around the larger movie. And a lot of these are movies that I have not seen before. A lot of checking off, blind spots and like bucket list things. So that's been one of the best things about doing what I do is not just watching the latest blockbusters and complaining about them, which I do a lot, but also learning so much from other people who have spent their lives dedicated to other kinds of movies that didn't interest me because I was an idiot, and now I love them. So I'm getting to rediscover film at nearly 50 years old.
And I feel like you and we crossed paths via the film Dead Weight. Is that right? Is that my memory of it?
That's the big bang of what Kicking the Seat would ultimately become, because it was at that event in Oshkosh, Wisconsin, that the premiere of Deadweight, where I also met Mark Krawcheck.
Ah,
Now Mark lives in Wisconsin, and it's crazy because I've known Mark since for 13 years now, because that premiere is 2012. We talk every week on Zoom, and so we're like really strong friends. But it's just at AC, you and I live in the same city. We've been hanging out for years and everything.
right.
But Mark and I have just as strong a relationship. And it's strange to say about someone I met for 5 minutes once 13 years ago, but I talk to him every week.
Little context is that Dead Weight is a little independent film that I shot with John Pata, writing and directing up in Wisconsin, Oshkosh, Wisconsin.
Yeah, the podcast, it might have been in its infancy. No, it was. I did have a podcast because I recorded an interview with John and Adam, the co-directors.
That's right.
Yeah, and I think it was a video interview that actually went up on our friend Chad Hawks's channel when he had a YouTube thing going on. So that's out there somewhere. But yeah,
I mean, I guess you knew I was a horror fan. I don't remember the first show that we did together that you invited me to be a podcast guest for,
I
but
don't either, and I should really have prepared better. But I mean, I know I can't remember. It's like a chicken and the egg thing. Did I come over to hang out with you and watch movies at your place, and then we decided to record it, or it's like, hey, let's do some shows, and eventually that led to, hey, coming over, watch movies together, and sometimes we'll record a podcast in your kitchen.
and I've been doing the Scare-a-Thon since 2010. And so somewhere along the line, you said, "Hey, I'd like to help support it." And so you would have me on to talk about the movies that I was watching, or just talk about the cause. And then I want to see 2020. We started doing, like, because everybody was stuck at home, we started doing the Friday Night Frights, where every Friday night it was you, me, and a few other folks would come on, and we'd talk about a movie, and you would kind of schedule those out and program them. And so we did that for years. And then once the world started opening up again, I was like, I don't have Friday nights available anymore. So we'll be doing a show over at Kicking the Seat. Should we tell them what we're going to be doing?
Yeah, I'm kind of embarrassed though, because the reaction I got when I said, hey, let's do a double bill of Scary Movie and Monster A
Monster a
Go
Go
Go.
Go.
It was like an intervention. You were trying to like talk me down from a
I
ledge that I
really
didn't know I
was
had
like,
gone
I'm like,
ventured out
you really
onto.
want to do this to yourself, but apparently you do really want to do this to yourself. I haven't seen Scary Movie, and it's celebrating its 25th anniversary this year. I haven't seen it since it first came out. And then Monster Go Go, I've seen enough times to question anybody who is willing to see Monster Go Go. So I'm excited to experience that with you.
The reason I want to watch it is because, again, I'll watch anything short of like, actual snuff films. But I love the idea of when someone says this is the worst movie ever made.
Yeah.
And I consider that to be a challenge. I mean, people say that about Tommy Wiseau's The Room, and I watch it, I'm like, I love this movie.
Hmm.
Even unironically, just because I appreciate the spirit behind it. And it's like, well, that guy went out and made a movie, he had zero talent. What's my excuse? I still haven't made a movie past high school. When someone says, oh, this is the worst thing, it's like, well, that's an invitation for me to check it out. It's not a repellent. It's like Pinhead says, we're explorers in the furthest regions of experience. And I want to go there. Just like when someone says, oh, this is the best movie ever made, I want to
Hmm.
go and watch it and see how I feel about it and why it goes in the other direction.
Yeah, and I think that's kind of our critics' reaction, is that we're like, well, I must see this thing that is exceptional in some way. And Monster Go-Go, I would not say it's the worst movie ever made. I think it's a tough sit. It feels clunky. It feels underfunded. It feels like there isn't maybe the vision to it. Certainly not the funds for it. Anyway, I'm looking forward to chatting more about that.
I'm looking forward to it too, especially because I haven't watched Scary Movie, I think, all the way through, and it's been at least 10 years. So that'll be a fun double feature. And who knows, I might come to champion Monster a Go-Go. I am notorious for loving schlock. I have a signed VHS of Freddy Got Fingered.
Well, I mean,
Yeah.
John Kitley and I, like we do Turkey Day twice a year where we sit down and do a marathon of like 6 or 7 really misunderstood movies. And so, yeah, I'm a Turkey fan, and that's how I've seen Monster Go-Go on a couple of occasions. But yeah, I don't think I recognized that you were also a lover of the psychotronic.
I don't know if I've ever heard you use that word before. Is that code for bad movies? Look, it's the thing is like everybody has their own scale of good and bad. And a lot of the times I find when someone says, "Oh, that movie was awful," sometimes they're right. And sometimes there's just something in me that responds to it. I don't want to say that I'm naturally contrarian. I think it just happens to come out that way, which may mean that I'm naturally contrarian. One of the things I've realized over the decade plus of doing this is there are real people behind making these movies. One of the perks of being a film critic is talking to filmmakers and actors and the people who put these things together. And it's kind of helped temper me in some regards because I was really savage in my criticisms early on, and it occasionally peaks out, but I at least try to back up what I'm saying. If I'm going to go hard against someone, I'm not just going to say, "Oh, this sucks." I'm going to be like, "This is bad because X, Y, and Z." And if you want to see a good version of this, go watch ABC. Not the ABCs of Death, which I don't think I've actually seen, but you get what I'm saying.
In your show, you frequently will have guests who come on and share the space with you. And I think that's one of the things that I like doing my own show is that I love hearing different people's viewpoints. I don't want to just sit with me in front of a camera and microphone and espouse what I think. I want to hear what other people think. I already know what I think, and I don't feel like it's important that I share what I think. But I think the conversation is what's important. And I love the fact that that's something you do and you cultivate it with different, you kind of have like a contained group of folks for certain playlists, but
Certain
like,
series, yeah. Mhm.
and I love that kind of core because then people can be like, I like that gang. Whereas I have more kind of a more rotating, a wider breadth of folks. How did you know that I was a horror guy and what made you want to reach out?
I know that I was at the book release party for Hidden Horror.
Oh gosh, sure.
I don't know if that was part of it because I knew some
That was
people who contributed to that.
2013 or 14, sure. Recently, you've had me on. I know we did like on the podcast version. We were talking about Argento,
Mhm.
and then we started doing Accademia Giallo once we moved to YouTube. We've done that, and we've also done 5 years of Hammer films as well.
Yeah, I mean, I think it started with Scuola Argento. That was the audio podcast thing, and then we moved into Accademia Giallo, and that was, Argento, I think, was kind of my gateway drug because the first time I saw Suspiria, I thought it was just unforgivably awful. And I think it took a couple, maybe by the time I watched it with you, it was like the third time of watching it, and really, it's not that you gave me the pitch, like, "Oh, here's why you should like it and how you should appreciate it." I think it, if I recall, was more like, "Hey, we should, check this out," because I know you really love that movie and you're an Argento fan, and a lot of people kind of in the horror circles are. So to me, it's kind of like 2001: A Space Odyssey. You can watch that at whatever stage of life you're in, and be like, this doesn't make any sense. It's dumb. I guess it's influential or whatever, but you can come back to it and really get into it and appreciate it. The same with me. I watched when I was 16, and that was a big mistake because
Mhm.
I was into, Tarantino movies and stuff. I didn't want to watch some deliberately paced, space flick. But now 2001: A Space Odyssey is, yeah, it's up there. It's one of my most cherished films. The same thing in the horror realm. You opened me up to a lot of different possibilities of what horror can be because I grew up a slasher kid in the 80s, and I didn't think that Hammer films were anything except basically like, PBS masterpiece theater dramas with, stage blood, until you said, "Hey, we should check this out." And now I'm head over heels for Hammer films and Giallo. It's amazing.
That's so funny. That's not my memory of the Hammer thing. I remember you coming to me and saying, I want to talk about the Hammer Frankensteins and the Hammer Draculas, and me being gung ho for the idea, but I don't think I sold you on it.
Well, again, my memory is hazy, but I think
As is mine, obviously.
but I may have gotten, it was probably a conversation we had of something, and you had mentioned Hammer, because I don't remember it being on my radar. So it might have been
Mm,
something that you had said to me and I thought about it, or it came up in some other context. I'm like, I want to explore these, but I don't know where to start. So, hey,
sure.
let's do something about it. Yeah.
Yeah, no, and since then we've done, we did Hammerland, which was all the Frankensteins and the Draculas, kind of the Gothics, and then we did Son of Hammerland, which was kind of the more offbeat stuff.
Yeah, I think we did Son of Hammerland, Beyond Hammerland, Return to Hammerland, and now we're finishing up Escape from Hammerland. The only reason I remember that is because of the chronology. Okay.
Well, I love the fact that you've remembered him kind of in the way that you have to remember the Planet of the Apes movies, which a lot of these feel like the titles feel a little inspired by.
Yep. Well, I haven't seen all the Apes movies, but I am familiar with them, so that does help. Yes.
Well, maybe that's what we need to do next because we're escaping from Hammerland. So we'll need to figure out something to talk about.
We've talked about talking about like a whole bunch of things, so I'll just have to dig out those lists I've made somewhere and say, okay, what are we talking about for the next decade?
I was talking with the folks at Super Horrorama and Chicago International Film Festival. We were talking about like it isn't that you just get to pick whatever movie you want to pick, but in this case, you do get to pick whatever movie you want to pick. And so sometimes the wealth of options can be a little daunting.
Yeah. And we've even had suggestions for movies to talk about on our various shows like Academia Giallo. And it's crazy because we recently welcomed a new faculty member in the form of Big Swifty, who, I mean, there'd been some cross pollination with the other shows, people that I have get as guests on the panel. He's popped up on their shows, like in the comment sections and things,
Right.
and including on Academia Giallo. And now he's on the show. It's,
Which
again, the power of the internet.
well, and also just the power of like passionate fandom. Like Big Swifty does show up and I was like, man, we should just have him in the mix. I think I had him on Horror 101 before we had him on Kicking the Seat, but like he's just great. And I'm thrilled that he has a voice literally now in the show.
And he's one of those rare guys that doesn't have anything to promote. Like, he is just a horror fan.
Yeah.
So I think when I asked him, like, "Oh, you have a site or a blog or anything?" He's like, "No, I'm just me. Just say I'm on the show."
just I like doing the show.
Yeah.
Speaking of programming and things like that, what are some like great get you in the mood for Halloween type movies that pop up for you? Like, yep, that reminds me of Halloween.
Oh, it's going to be, terrible, because Friday the 13th, which I cannot talk about horror movies without bringing it up. Take a drink, everybody. Um, but the original Nightmare on Elm Street, that all goes back to when I was, I think, 10 years old. My parents had kind of prohibited me from watching horror movies. At a certain age, it was very strange because they allowed me to watch horror movies when I was way, way too young. But I think they saw that it traumatized me. So they're like, nope, no more. And then Halloween night, it was 1987, I rented the first Elm Street with my mom, and we watched it, and I got freaked out by the scene where Tina was being dragged up the wall and, cut up and everything. And my butt was like on the VCR remote. And so I like screamed, and then it accidentally turned off the TV, and then we both screamed, and then we turned it back on and just like watched as if nothing happened. So that was sort of my gateway. In terms of perennial favorites, the cliche things like Halloween is a good one. I want to. We just talked about Black Sunday, but man, you talk about an atmospheric, like, this is Halloween distilled onto cinema. I'll just probably put on the first 15 minutes of that and watch that. But the thing I'm most excited for is, I haven't verified this, but I heard about it. But on Disney Plus, they have Something Wicked This Way Comes,
Mm.
which I have not seen since I was a little kid, but I still think about that movie in just different contexts. It pops into my head like the Triple Dent gum commercial, and I'm so excited to revisit that one.
Yeah, that has a great Halloween feel to it. Like it's dark and spooky in autumn. It's great.
And the Bradbury novel is great too. It's different, but it's I read that apropos of nothing, like probably 10 years ago, and it was just as creepy as I remember the movie being.
What are some other fun October events you have on the schedule?
Well, just trick or treating. I mean, that's the like because I've got, two boys now. One is, too cool for school. He's going to be handing out candy and playing Minecraft, I think, during, trick or treating time. But yeah, my wife and my youngest, we like to dress up and we go to like what we call the rich neighborhoods, the place with like the giant houses. But the great thing about the giant houses in our areas is they also have like Halloween freaks who they'll take their sprawling front lawns and deck them out, and they'll have all sorts of candy and games and, sometimes adult beverages for the parents. Several blocks of just like big Halloween block parties. It's just a joy to go to. The one thing that's kind of sad this year is a couple houses down from us, there's a guy named Dave, who for a long time had sort of a famous garage. He turned his garage into a haunted house. He would build up partitions so that you'd go in there and you'd have to make your ways through a maze with all sorts of creatures and ghouls and things jumping out at you. And then, like November 1st, he'd tear it all down. You just see it looks like a regular small garage. He TARDISed that thing. I still don't know how he did it.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, he passed away earlier this year. His sister came to clear out the house, had to get rid of a lot of stuff, but she gave us first dibs on some of his cherished Halloween decorations. So now we're putting those up in our yard, kind of in memory of him.
That's very cool. Do you remember the first movies? Like, was it Nightmare on Elm Street? Was it, I mean, what were the ones that like really sent you over the edge? And why'd you keep coming back?
In terms of Halloween or just horror movies in general?
Horror movies in general.
Okay, there's The Shining, of course, the Grady twins. It's only in the last couple of years that they stopped freaking me out. My wife will attest to this, and she's very annoyed with me. Whenever I go down to the basement to change out the laundry, I have to grab my phone and my AirPods to listen to a podcast, so I'm not like focusing on shadows or imagining dead little girls like asking me to come play. Friday the 13th, the final chapter, that was one of the early films that my parents for some reason allowed me to watch, and I only got through the first 10 minutes of that because when Jason's like stabbing the neck with the banana and the whole thing, I was like, my folks were like, okay, that's enough. But that movie began with the montage of all the deaths from the first three films, which I hadn't seen at that point, but they stuck with me and I had nightmares for, over a decade. Unfortunately, growing older and having to walk my youngest who really wants to watch horror movies but can't, I have to get into the mode of explaining, well, it's not real and you're not old enough to watch them. And I kind of like explain like he's heard about Jason and Pennywise and that stuff. So in this like demystifying things to help save his fragile psyche, in a way, it helps me kind of process my own trauma from watching those movies. I'm like, oh, that stuff's not real. So it's very hard to scare me now.
Yeah, no, I hear you. I find myself appreciating movies and I'm like, yes, intellectually, I know that is scary, but I don't get that same kind of visceral where I am checking, under the bed and in the closet. I'm just kind of like, yeah, that was a good movie. Well done, filmmaker.
Yeah.
Well, thank you, Ian. I appreciate you coming on and celebrating. This is, of course, all in service of Scare-a-Thon 2025, benefiting the International Rescue Committee. They have been providing help for those who need help all over the world, 40 different countries for almost 100 years now. The link to donate will be below in the description of this video, as will links to Ian's shows, perhaps some of the playlists that we talked about, some of the episodes that we've talked about. Thank you so much for everything you've done for Scare-a-Thon and for me personally.
Well, thank you, AC. It's again, your friendship and tutelage, frankly, and teaching me about the unexplored avenues of horror has been very invaluable, along with all the friends that you've introduced me to who, again, that whole cross-pollination thing. It's invaluable. And that's what we should be using these platforms for instead of sowing division and hate, dare I say. So yeah, there is hope for the future. I believe it.
Thank you, buddy. Thank you so much, everybody. Keep searching, keep exploring, and keep sharing the scare.